friends, happy Tuesday. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do this week's check-in on because I've had a couple different ideas in my mind. The first one is willpower. And willpower is, I looked it up, the definition is, it's control exerted to do something or to restrain our impulses. So we hear of willpower being something that motivates us to do something or something that motivates us to not do something. So to get out of bed on time in the morning, if any of you saw my live earlier today, or to avoid the treat table at the work party or whatever, willpower. And we often hear the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. And we're taught that we can do anything if we just draw on our willpower. And the problem is that our willpower is not always on will call, which means sometimes we really have willpower and sometimes we just don't. Sometimes it's just missing and we wake up one day and we're like, I don't have it. And then the next day we're great. So I like to think of willpower like the battery on your cell phone. Every morning, unless you're like me and forget to plug your phone into your charger, every morning you've got a full charge. And throughout the day, each time you draw on that willpower, you use a little bit of that battery. And once you get to the red, you're done. And sometimes we find that we're fighting all day long. And then by the time we get to late night and that treat cupboard is calling to us, our willpower is gone. And so there's nothing to protect us from going for that treat cupboard. So willpower has a limited battery life, but it can be managed or it can be recharged by giving it downtime. And that sounds weird. It sounds like I'm treating willpower as a toddler or as a child or as a human, which, maybe in a way you could think of it that way. And so, because we have a limited supply of willpower, every decision or every act creates a win-lose scenario sometimes. And in that moment, we're winning in the immediate situation, but we'll most likely lose later because we've used up our willpower. And so how is it that we can manage to not run out of willpower when it comes or when we need it? There's a whole bunch of things that I could go into. If you want to know more about willpower, I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to recommend a book. The One Thing. There's a whole section in here on willpower that's amazing. Any of you who are familiar with running, willpower is like a fast twitch muscle. Fast twitch muscles are what sprinters use because they have a ton of power. And so you can get a quick burst of energy, but the endurance is not there. Distance runners, marathoners, they rely on slow twitch muscles, which can go for a long time. It doesn't use as much power, but willpower, you can get a quick burst of it and then it's gone. And when we run out of it, when we hit that endurance cycle or when we're running on fumes, we default. We go to our factory reset, our default settings, and a lot of times those default settings are the easy choice. They are the ones that take the least amount of effort. There are autopilot settings. And the key to reprogram your autopilot settings is habit. Habits are what can really make or break our willpower. And so the live video I did today was about micro habits. And a lot of times we have these gigantic, hairy, scary, audacious goals, things that we want to do, things that we say that we are going to accomplish in a day, things that we say we're going to accomplish in a certain amount of time. And we're so focused on that end game that we trip ourselves up and we end up rolling down the mountain backwards because we don't break it up into manageable chunks. So the macro goal is reached through micro habits. And in our conversations that we've had one-on-one, we've talked about habits, the cycle of having a cue, having the action, and having the reward. And we can't change our cue. Life happens, things happen, positive or negative. We can't change that cue. What we can change is how we respond to the cue. So in the action, when it comes to, let's say, you come into work, it's holidays. It's the holiday season. People are going to be bringing treats. You come into work and there is a massive table full of treats. Your conditioned response is treat, must eat treat, I'll feel better. Or you maybe avoid it that first time, but then you have a really crappy phone call or a meeting that really bothers you, or your coworker that drives you bananas is on his game today. Not speaking from personal experience. But then it makes that cue. The cue is that emotion or that feeling, and the action is, I need something that's going to make me feel better right now. And so then the reward is, yes, I'll feel better for right now, but more often than not, in the grand scheme of things, that reward kind of makes us feel not too great. So the bad habit is easy. The better choice takes effort. And so how do we go about managing that habit loop? The cue, the response, the reward. So being mindful of what currently might be something that you want to change. What are the triggers that consistently pop up during the day that result in decisions that you wish you weren't making? So even just being conscious, I talk about being mindful a lot, even just being conscious of that, regardless of whether there's a change or not, just being conscious of it helps. And then what can you replace that negative coping mechanism with? So for a long time, for me, I would, if I got stressed out or if I got upset or if I got frustrated, I would go to the grocery store and wander the bakery. And that was not a good thing. And I discovered the forest. Living on the East Coast, there's a lot of forests there. So for me, if I get stressed out or start to feel that negative angst, I escape to the woods. It makes me sound like a homeless person, but I really do. I go wander in the woods until I no longer need to rely on that negative thing to help cope with that emotion. So some of you have asked me, how do I go about managing all of these things that are coming in my face, especially now as we're in the last few months of the year heading into holiday season? The key word is intentionality. So what I would suggest is, first of all, decide what it is that you want to do. If you want to be able to make it through the holiday season saying, I did not go overboard on those treats, or I made it through the holiday season without eating them at all, I don't know. You decide where on the continuum you want to be. But decide right now what you want that to look like, and write it down. And then in the morning, when you wake up, part of your morning routine, think about what's on your schedule for that day. And then think about, what instances might happen throughout the day that might trigger me to go back on that decision that I made. And then, so whether that's I have to take my kids to soccer and it's like pulling teeth trying to get them out of the car, or I cannot stand waiting in pickup line at the end of the day, or for the life of me, if I could get my coworker to leave me alone so I can finish his project, that'd be awesome. Whatever you think throughout the day, what potentially could trigger you. And maybe those things won't trigger you that day, but at least you thought about it and planned ahead. And so then once you know, what are those things that could trigger you, ask yourself, how does the best version of me, the version that I am wanting to be, manage that trigger? Is it going to the treat table and grabbing that little fun-sized candy bar? Maybe. Is it going for a walk downstairs around the building? Is it putting on a song? Is it, looking through pictures on your phone? Whatever it is, you decide how the best version of you manages that particular trigger, and then put it into action. And then at the end of the day, think back on all those opportunities that you had and kind of rate yourself. How did that go? Did that work well? Did that particular action plan help me manage that trigger? If not, think about what maybe could help you instead. And then just take it day by day. Don't give yourself a big chunk of time. Don't say, I'm going to do this thing for the next 2 weeks, unless that's something that's helpful for you. But just take it day by day. So wake up or make the decision today of what you want that goal to be. And again, it's going to revert back to your why. So make the decision today. Then when you wake up every morning, set your intention. Think about what could trigger you and think about how the best version of you would manage that trigger. If you think about it ahead of time, when the moment comes, you'll feel a little bit less anxious because you've already decided how you were going to handle that. And that is my tip for the day. So I hope you guys are having a great week, and I look forward to touching base with all of you. Have a good day. Bye.